What's up out there? Welcome back to some more Melvor Idle, and in this video I wanted to give like a little guide or whatever for the Impending Darkness event itself. The event itself is broken down into 5 phases, and each phase you're going to pick up a different debuff. So you basically start with a debuff, you have to select one when you start the event, and then it starts phase 1, and for that entire phase you have a debuff. Once you beat that phase, you pick another debuff, and then you go through that until you're done with the whole thing. So you pretty much have 5 debuffs at the very end, and you have to overcome all of that. So we're going to talk about the various aspects of the whole thing, and we're going to talk about the fight and what all it entails. So let's dive in. Some general things first. First and foremost, know your combat triangle. This is rock, paper, scissors, but in melee, ranged, and magic form. So melee defeats ranged, ranged defeats magic, magic defeats melee. Now, if you go the opposite direction, you're going to take a debuff to everything. So if you try to attack a magic character with melee, you're going to take a debuff. So you better be very well overpowered before you do that. So where this becomes important is like the Unhallowed Wasteland and Dark Waters. Those areas you don't really want to attack the wrong thing with the wrong combination, because you're going to go into it and take way more damage than you need to and probably die. So use the right thing. Know the combat triangle. And this is the very in-game event, so you should by now know what the combat triangle is. In the game, it shows you, what stats they are, but once you memorize the order of it, it's not bad. This is a very long fight. There's 5 phases to this thing, and each phase is about 20 to 25 minutes. So break this thing into chunks. Otherwise, you're going to be just kind of bleary-eyed by the time you're done with it. It is very long. So me personally, I was doing like 1 or 2 segments at a time. Maybe take a bathroom break, come back, maybe just go away for a little while and come back. You can pause the event at any time and go do any other non-combat skills. So it just helps make it go, I might pause it for a whole day and then come back, go do some fishing or cooking or whatever, and then come back and do some more combat. The only combat you can do is in the event itself, so you can't do anything outside of it once you've started the event, but you can start and stop the event anytime you want, and you can run inside the event anytime you want. So tip number 3 is going to revolve around the various aspects of healing. First and foremost, heal anytime you feel like you need to. Just heal. It doesn't matter. The only thing you're going to do is extend the fight out a little bit longer. You're not going to hurt anything. You're just going to maybe take a few more hits than you normally would, so have plenty of food and everything, but manually heal when you need to, especially manually heal in the Unhallowed Wasteland and in the Dark Waters areas, specifically against greater skeletals and red claws. The greater skeletals will stun you, and you need to not have damage done when you get hit with that stun, because it doesn't take very many stacks to build up before this thing can kill you. So if you have any damage taken and you have stacks built up, it's just the greater skeletal will just wipe the floor with you. Now the red claws, I didn't have any issues on any other time I fought, but I started noticing here, depending on what negative modifiers I had, those things, when you get into a bleed, those things get a bonus. So there were times that they had a couple hundred hit points more than what I could absorb. So pay attention to those things. And then in Dark Waters, then you start getting into the Rockins, and the Rockins, if they stun you, they can do some serious damage and kill you too. So you want to make sure that you don't get stunned, or if you do get stunned, manually heal to full and then let the stun wear off and then come back. Otherwise you run the risk of dying, and it's just, then you have to start this whole fight over again, and this thing really sucks. Also heal in between every fight, even if it's just a little bit. I still recommend starting every fight fresh, unless you're getting into some of the really easy areas, but especially in Unhallowed Wasteland and Dark Waters, make sure and heal between the fights there, because a lot of the things in those 2 areas can kill you. It's the other 2 areas that don't matter so much. I'm going to throw a series of shots on the screen here. The first one is going to be the gear setup that I use for the Unhallowed Wasteland. There is basically no compromise on this. There's nothing you can change about it that I know of, because you have to have pretty much all of the high damage reduction gear that you can get. You want the best weapon in the game that you can get, and you're going to want as much Slayer gear or the Hunter's Ring and stuff like that. Like, you have to have 3 pieces of Slayer gear. You have to have the maximum skill cape and the Hunter's Ring, and that's all to negate all of the... I think you could probably do it with the Slayer's cape, but you're going to have the max skill cape at this point because you have to have 99 in all skills. I forgot to mention that. You have to have 99 in all skills to get into the Impending Darkness event, so you should have 3 of those max skill capes at that point anyway, and those give you some additional bonuses above and beyond the Slayer skill cape. But the reason you need that is so that you can get into all the different Slayer areas without having to equip different gear each time. So I'm going to have a set of screenshots up here for what the Unhallowed Wasteland fight looks like for the magic, or for melee, magic, and ranged. And then I'm going to show what I use for the other stuff, which is basically replacing the chest piece with the normal god chest piece, and then taking the passive slot and then mostly putting in the little combination ring and gauntlet that you can use. The one that I really changed quite a bit is the melee side, and pretty much ran the Fury of the Elemental Zodiacs on all 3 characters. I took the time to grind out 3 of them. That worked out really well. But then once I got out of the Unhallowed Wasteland, I switched that out to the Fighter Amulet on the melee character so I could do more stun. And you'll notice that I have the Relentless Fury gauntlets and ring on for that, just because he does more stun. And that helps you with the Rockin' fight. It just stuns them more than they can stun you, so it just makes it quicker and easier. As far as tablets go, you're going to want to use the tablet for each fighting style in conjunction with the dragon tablets. The dragon tablets, put them on fire and burn them away. The potion you want to use is Diamond Luck throughout the entire thing. You're going to have chance to hit issues, so just have that equipped. Tip number 5, have plenty of prayer points, food, runes, bolts, summoning tablets, diamond lucks. Have plenty of all your consumables. Make sure you have enough. Don't go in with just a little bit, because if you run out, you basically need everything tip top to run through the entire event without trouble. You can always craft some in between phases if you have to, but definitely have as much of everything going into it. That way you're just ready to rock and roll and be done with it. Tip number 6. As long as you don't end the event itself, there's a giant red button up at the very top that says end event. As long as you don't click that, you can run from any area you want. So if a fight gets a little too thick for you, you can run from it. If you get a Bane that you don't want to fight, like I would try to stay away from the melee versions of him, you can run away from that, and then you just have to redo that area. You don't have to redo all 4 areas, just the area you ran away from. Maybe you forgot a gear change or something in there. There's not really time, especially on Unhallowed Wasteland and Dark Waters. You need to be on that heal button. So if you made a mistake in your gear, you can run and then come back. It's no big deal. The reasons you would restart the entire event itself is if you get a bad roll for the modifiers. There were some really sucky ones, and if you get 3 of those to pick from, you can just run and come back. Not necessarily a big deal. Tip number 7, just so you know, going into this, you're going to get a shield for each of the first 3 phases. You're going to get a different shield. I believe the order is melee, ranged, and magic, and those can replace whatever shield you have on your character. Now, I did try to use the magic shield for a little while, and then I ended up going back to the Earth-Layered shield that you get from the Terran God dungeon. And the reason I did that is, and you may see, depending on which gear I show in the image there, you may see either the magic shield or the Earth-Layered shield. The reason I went back to the Earth-Layered shield is a little more damage reduction, because as you go, the things that you're going to fight that are the most nastiest things you're going to fight is the Greater Skeletal Dragons and the Red Claws. So I figured the most damage reduction I could get on those was better than the negative damage reduction I could give them for taking damage. So I switched that out. Yeah. So those shields do tend to help, but there is a point where maybe the Earth Layered Shield is better. And you could probably use the Earth Layered Shield on all three characters, just have better damage reduction. But I just mainly stuck it on Magic just for that one reason, because it's fighting the worst things in that whole area. So I figured it had the best help for that. Now, in the wiki page, they do give you the order how to attack these. And they tell you to start with the Unhallowed Wasteland. You're going to need all, and the reason they give you this particular order is because you can basically set your gear one way and then switch it and then use it for the rest. So you don't have to keep switching back and forth. And they tell you to start with the Unhallowed Wasteland because that's the worst area to start with. And you put on your basically all your Slayer gear there, and you have to gear up for that. And then once you're done with that, you can switch out to whatever you want and continue on the rest of the way. So I gave you some screenshots of what I had before earlier on. So once you get into that, that's when I switch out a lot of that Slayer gear or switch out the chest piece for the normal God chest piece, and then use whatever I want in the passive slots. So you do Unhallowed Wasteland, Dark Waters, then Shrouded Badlands, and then Perilous Peaks. I didn't really get why they wanted you to put Perilous Peaks at the very end, but it's something to do with where Bane shows up and the modifiers he gets there. Didn't understand it, don't really care. I followed that through my standard account, and I followed it through my adventure account. It seemed to work fairly well, so no reason to change that. So like I said, you want to do Unhallowed Wasteland first, get the worst thing out of the way, then do Dark Waters, then do the Shrouded Badlands, and then finally end up in Perilous Peaks, and then you'll fight Bane after that. So for the Bane fight specifically, this is tip number 9. In healing, you want to heal through Suffocate. You're going to fight him 5 different times at least, and he's going to do Suffocate every single one of those times. Now, the thing with Suffocate is once you get down to, I believe it's 50% health, you get stunned for 2 rounds, which really sucks. Don't do that. Don't let your hit points go down. The Suffocate may seem tempting, like a Greater Dragon's Breath or something like that, but don't get down to that point. The other one is on the final Bane. He has something called Overwhelming Power, and that does a lot of damage quickly. So make sure you heal through that also. So Suffocate and Overwhelming Power are the ones you want to heal through. Everything else, I would say top off as needed. And as your stacks build, and as the more phases you get into this fight, especially at the last one, and then the more stacks you get, you want to be riding that manual heal button. It's going to make the fight take a little bit longer, but you won't die. That's what killed me in my adventure account. What was killing me in my standard account was the being stunned from Suffocate. I wasn't catching on to what was going on, and I kept getting stunned, and I kept wondering why I was, and then I ended up dying. So as far as prayers go, for the most part, you're going to use Battle Heart throughout. And then I was using either Protect Melee, Ranged, or Magic, depending on what I was fighting. And the same thing goes for Bane himself. If you have to use the style that he does. So if he's Magic, use Protect Magic. If you're fighting in the regular areas, make sure and use whatever Protect is for whatever creature you're fighting. Again, know the combat triangle. Back on Bane, you have to fight him as a combat style that he is. I would tend to skip the melee version of him just because melee can get bogged down and it just takes forever to complete. He starts getting into his heal. If he heals too many times in a row, he's back to half health, and you've basically wasted 5 minutes just doing that. So I would take the melee version of him early on, and then if it became too late, I might try it. And if it was dragging on, I'd just run and come back. Sometimes you may have to run 2, 3, 4 times and keep redoing the area to get a different version of him. The best version to get is Magic. And if you have the Magic, you want to put the Incinerate spell on with, I can't remember what it is. It's there's a haste spell you can get where your attack goes down by 0.2 seconds. So instead of 2.5, you get 2.3. With Incinerate, you don't miss. And quite honestly, this last time I went through my adventure account, I started using Incinerate on everything, and I really liked it a lot. It doesn't miss. It does like 6,000 damage or something over time. It lights things on fire and just keeps them burning. So why would you not use it? Ranged wasn't bad. In fact, that's how I beat my adventure mode version of him. It's not as good as magic, but it's not as bad as melee. The last thing that I will throw out here is, I feel like I got a hair running around here, this itch going on. So on the wiki page, they give you a big breakdown of what they think you should do for the fight. They give you the gear guides and all that, which is a very good guide to follow. There's a few things that I disagree with, and it basically has to do with the order of debuffs that you would take. They recommend the first thing that you take is this 100% chance to ignore stuns, freezes, and immune to sleep. Basically, that means no enemy you fight will ever get stunned. And I think I did the math earlier. There's like over 125, 130 different monsters you fight. The Bane Boss fight, which you're going to fight 5 of, he's immune to stun. Okay, so that's probably why they want you taking this first. The thing is, there's over 100 fights you're going to have where stun could be useful. So my advice is take stun last. And I saw that on somebody else, that like the first person that had beaten, or the first person that had posted something on Reddit was talking about that. And the more I look at it, the more I agree with it. That stun is huge, especially when you equip the fighter amulet and get the Relentless Fury set and the melee shield. That thing cranks out stuns like crazy. So definitely put that at the bottom of the list. And then I'm going to put this, it's on the screen here. You'll be able to see it, but you'll see my order. There's a gap in there, and that gap goes from things that you probably want to take, which is the top 6. And then the bottom 6 are the things you want to just absolutely avoid. In fact, if I got some of these, especially the bottom ones, the Slayer area effects are 5% stronger. That means that you will now not be able to negate all of the effects. That's no good. Healing 4% of their current hit points every 2 turns. No, absolutely not. That's no good at all. And then, like I said, this 100% chance to ignore stuns and freezes, no. I would not take any of those ever. And as you come up into these, the 15% chance to apply affliction, that's really bad too. 10% max hit, minus 10% attack interval, and minus 10% global evasion. Yeah, that's not so great. There's one on there that they had higher on the list, which is the enemy has a 50% chance to apply burn and a 50% chance to apply frostburn when they attack. I moved this one way down because this really sucks to try to negate. Like if you're trying to do manually healing, the thing will be ticking fire constantly, so it throws you out of your manual heal, and that is a very unpleasant thing to fight against. So I would not, strongly don't take it. There's one that's applying poisoning, but poisoning is a much slower attack, so it only goes once every few seconds versus once every tick or whatever. Fire and burning is not good. It really throws off your attacks. But that's kind of it. Pretty much the fight is going to be long and boring and tedious, and you have to sit through it and manually heal a lot and manually heal the further you get into it. So that's kind of the fight in a nutshell. Hopefully this is covered in things that make it useful, things that make it easier, and hopefully the video is useful to you. That will do it for this one. We will catch you on the next one. Take care.